You wake up in a mud-stained tent. If you're still awake, there's probably a reason. This is Boring History Nights, where history doesn't speak loudly, but long enough to hush the dark. You didn't come here for answers. Maybe not even for sleep. Maybe just to be somewhere soft. Here, the stories don't push. They float like ash from an old fire no one remembers lighting. The air doesn't move. Somewhere, a canvas flaps. Or maybe it's just your breath brushing the quiet. Cold seeps through the seams of the tent like a second skin. Whatever warmth you carried, it wouldn't have lasted the night. Let's not stretch this too fast. If something about this quiet spiral makes the night pass easier, you can subscribe. Only if you'd want to hear the next one drift by. And if you're still awake, say where the night found you. I read them all, even the ones that don't remember how they got here. Now let the dark stay dark. Let whatever follows arrive slowly, like it's always been here. You don't have to keep up. Just listen. This is Boring History Nights, and you're already inside it. You wake up to the feeling of cold, damp cloth clinging to your back. The blanket, if it deserves to be called that, has slipped half off your shoulders in the night, and your feet have been soaking in something soft for hours. The tent floor was canvas once, but the rain turned it into a swamp's whisper. The scent of mildew and unwashed wool floats around you, dense but not cruel, more like a memory that overstayed its welcome. Outside, it's still dark, but not the comforting dark of night. This is the dull gray before dawn that carries no peace, only the promise of shouting. You sit up slowly, because anything faster hurts. Your lower back resists, stiff and unsure of what you're asking it to do. Knees creak like old saddles. Every inch of your skin itches, not sharply but insistently, as if your body is trying to forget itself one patch at a time. A boot shifts beside you, not your own, and someone grunts in a tone that means they're alive, but disappointed about it. There's no privacy in a medieval army camp. No walls, no silence. Even here, in your shared tent with 6 other bodies slumped like sacks. There's always some noise, a cough, a groan, a murmur of someone dreaming of a bed they'll never see again. The army camp doesn't begin with battle. It begins with discomfort. Your hand reaches for your pouch, automatically, not out of habit, but fear. It's still there. The 3 coins you carry rattle faintly. You don't count them. You never do. You know the weight by now, not of the metal, but the limitation. They're not enough to buy freedom. Maybe not even dry socks. The tent flap opens without ceremony, and light bleeds in like a warning. A boy no older than 15 sticks his head in. His hair is wild, lips cracked, eyes too tired to hold judgment. "Up," he says. No rank, no name, just the command dry, casual, practiced. And so, you rise. Your legs feel like someone else's, wrapped in linen that hardened overnight with your sweat. You rub your face with a palm that smells of smoke and fatigue. Your skin flakes where the wind dried it, and cracks where the damp refused to leave. Outside, the camp stirs like a field of tired animals. Canvas flaps in rhythms, not meant to match. Soldiers trudge with buckets, boots sinking into the early mud. Some of them look alert, already moving with purpose. You envy them not because they're stronger, but because they're used to this. Their eyes don't fight the morning anymore. They've surrendered to it. The fire pits have gone out, or rather, they were never lit. Embers from last night's rations are dead, buried under ash like forgotten whispers. You wonder if anyone's going to try and relight them, or if breakfast today is going to be just bread again, the kind that chips teeth before it feeds you. You pass by a row of horses. They're tied too close together, their flanks muddy and eyes dull. One snorts when you approach, more in habit than hostility. The smell of manure is everywhere, not sharp, Not repulsive, just there, like a truth you stopped questioning. There's a rhythm to this life, if you can call it life. Wake up, regret it, move anyway. Your feet squish with every step, your left heel blistered from yesterday's march. The camp doesn't march every day, but it always prepares to. That's worse in some ways, the threat of movement without the actual release of going anywhere. No one greets you. No one asks how you slept. Those questions belong to other worlds, hearths and homes, not temporary fields with latrines barely dug deep enough to forget what they hold. You make your way to the center of camp. The captain stands by a wagon, yelling names you barely recognize. They're not yours. They're never yours. You're new or perhaps too quiet to be remembered. Either way, it makes you invisible in the most dangerous way. It's said that some soldiers would carve their names into spoons or belts just to prove they existed once, not to posterity, to themselves. You almost laugh, but your breath catches instead. The cold takes it like it owned it all along. A boy near you tries to put on his chainmail shirt, and it sticks halfway. Another man helps yank it down over his ribs. No thanks is given, no words, even. The rust scratches his arms, but he doesn't flinch. He's been flinched out. You find your own gear, a leather vest half cracked with wear, a belt with 2 missing holes, and boots whose laces were replaced with wire. The day has only just begun, and already it feels like it's apologizing. Some days don't begin. They just continue where yesterday stopped, like someone forgot to fold time properly before laying it down. And still, somehow, there's order. A man with half a voice calls for rows. You stand beside others who are not friends, not enemies, just nearby bodies filling the space. The smell of unwashed wool and breath is heavier than the mist. The mist doesn't clear, it just sinks lower, dragging you with it. You're told to wait. You don't know for what. A cart arrives, not food, not weapons, just firewood, wet, probably. Useless for now, but still carried with purpose. The man unloading it does not look up. His hands bleed around the edges, cracked like bark. There's no place to sit. Not really. Some squat by rocks. Others lean against posts. You stand. Standing is what you do now. Not because you're ordered to, but because the ground might not give you back if you try to rest on it. The camp dog wanders by. No one owns it, but it's been here longer than most. It limps, slightly. You don't pet it. You don't even try. The sun doesn't rise. It just becomes more visible, not warm, not golden. Just there, like a memory of better mornings wrapped in gray. Somewhere, someone prays. Not loudly, just a murmur. To whom? You don't know. But it's not for victory. Not today. You close your eyes for a moment, just to see if sleep will chase you back. It doesn't. Sleep isn't brave enough to enter a medieval army camp during daylight. And so, you remain. You walk toward the supply tent, not because you want to, but because your body already knows the way. Hunger doesn't need memory, it moves your feet for you. The morning mist is thinning, but the cold still clings to your sleeves, and your boots suck at the earth with each step, like the mud wants to keep you here a little longer. You're not alone. Everyone is moving in that same slow, aimless rhythm, drawn toward the only certainty the camp provides: bread. There is no line, no order, just proximity and timing and the understanding that if you arrive too late, you'll still be handed something. It just might be less. The cook doesn't look up as you approach. He stands behind a warped wooden table, sleeves rolled to the elbows, hands dusted with something that might have once been flour. His ladle hangs motionless above a pot that steams faintly, though no one really believes anything in it is warm. He doesn't speak. He reaches behind him, pulls out a chunk of bread, and slaps it into your palm with the practiced indifference of a man who has stopped counting how many mouths he's fed without feeding anyone. The bread is dense. Your fingers barely dent it. You press your thumb into the crust and it doesn't yield. You sniff it once. There's no scent of yeast, no warmth, no promise, just dryness, and maybe the hint of last week's ashes. You don't complain. No one does. You tear a corner off with your teeth, and your jaw aches immediately. It's like chewing on bark. You chew anyway, not because you expect satisfaction, but because it's what the morning asks of you. The sound of others biting, chewing, and swallowing surrounds you, a quiet orchestra of survival. There is no table. You squat near the fire pit, knees tucked, hands wrapped around your meal like it might wander off if you let go. Nearby, someone mutters that this piece must have been baked during the last famine. No one laughs. Humor requires more calories than anyone can spare. A boy beside you dips his bread into a tin cup filled with water, softening the edge before he bites. He does it slowly, reverently, as though he's trying to remember how meals used to feel. You don't soften yours. You don't have water to spare. You chew, pause, chew again. The bread resists, but eventually it gives up. This isn't food. This is fuel, and it's not even good at that. The bread doesn't feed you. It just reminds your stomach there's still something missing. Across the pit, a man is gnawing at his crust like it owes him something. He's missing 2 front teeth, and the bread doesn't care. He sucks on the edges, working the corners into paste. His lips are cracked, his tongue dry, but he doesn't stop. None of us do. A fight breaks out somewhere to the left, short, sharp, forgotten before it's over. No one flinches. Someone probably cut the line, took an extra piece, maybe grabbed from the wrong pile. Maybe someone recognized a bite mark that wasn't theirs. The reason doesn't matter. There's no law here, only hunger and proximity. You look down at the rest of your bread. You're halfway through. You feel no fuller than when you started. It has the flavor of dust and commitment. In another life, you remember warm bread, thick crusts that crackled when torn, steam rising like breath from the soul of it, salted butter melting before you could spread it all the way, maybe even herbs, rosemary, thyme. It's dangerous to remember food here. It turns chewing into grief. So you forget. You take another bite. You're not alone in this ritual. All around, soldiers crouch, chew, sit in silence. Some stare into the distance as if watching a meal they'll never touch. One man holds his bread like he's waiting for it to apologize. Another breaks his into pieces, lines them up, and eats them in order. Everyone has their method. Everyone needs one. There are stories of men who swallowed stones once, just to feel full. You wonder how far down that story is from truth. One of the officers walks past, tossing a crust to the camp dog. The dog sniffs it, chews twice, and then sits down beside the fire. It looks more satisfied than anyone else. You try not to notice that. Someone nearby says that the bread used to be better when they were stationed near the coast. Someone else responds that bread's never been good, just less awful. You chew in silence, because the difference isn't worth arguing about. There's no drink served with this. No soup, no broth, just crumbs and breath and the creak of jaws growing tired before the day has even begun. Somewhere in the distance, a whistle blows, not as a signal, just as a reminder that someone still thinks time matters. You finish slowly, not because you savor it, but because there's no reason to rush. Once the bread is gone, the day starts, and no one wants that. Your hands are coated in flakes, gray, dry, meaningless. You wipe them on your tunic. The stains there are too old to care. You look up. The sky is the color of boiled bone, pale, thick, immovable. You could scream into it, and it would only respond with more cloud. A man beside you drops the rest of his bread in the mud. He doesn't bend to pick it up. He just stares at it for a long moment and then walks away. The piece sinks slowly, merging into the camp like everything else does eventually. You take one last bite of yours. It doesn't taste like victory. It doesn't even taste like bread. But it's something, and in this place, that's enough. No one volunteers. That's not how things work here. Orders come without fanfare, just a glance, a tilt of the head, a grunt, and suddenly, you're holding a shovel. You don't argue. You don't ask how long. You take the handle like it was meant for you, though no one ever says your name. In a medieval army camp, latrine duty isn't a punishment. It's a rotation of silence, a necessary horror passed from hand to hand like a wound no one claims. The shovel's wooden grip is slick from use, worn down until it feels more like bone than tool. You test the weight of it briefly, then follow the rutted path toward the back of the camp, where the smell always gets ahead of you. It's not unbearable, not anymore. You've learned to brace your breath the way some men brace for arrows, short, shallow, and without looking directly at what's coming. There's a trench already dug, half collapsed, barely covered with withered brush. You walk past it, boots squelching in the ground that never truly dries, and pick a fresh patch where the moss has started to retreat. This will be the new one, not because you chose it, but because the old one is full. That's the only metric that matters here. You begin to dig. The blade breaks the earth reluctantly, pushing through mud and roots and things better left unmentioned. Every scoop is a small betrayal of the land, of your back, of your dignity. You don't count the shovelfuls. You don't measure depth. You dig until your arms sting and your breath shortens. And when you pause, the pit stares back at you, not accusingly, but expectantly, like it knows more will be coming. You look up once. No one's watching. No one ever does. The camp pretends this place doesn't exist. If your eyes are fading, let them. The story wasn't waiting for anyone. The latrine trench isn't just a hole in the earth. It's a ledger, a record of all the things the body can't keep. Waste, rot, sweat, everything shed under the illusion that it doesn't follow you, but it does. You smell it on your hands even before you touch anything. It's in the air, in the cloth, in the back of your throat where no spit can wash it clean. You take a break and lean on the shovel, wrists aching, fingers tight with grime. A rat scurries near the edge of the pit and vanishes under the brush, quiet as guilt. You don't flinch. Rats are part of the ecosystem here, more present than priests, more honest than captains. Someone once told you that digging latrines taught humility, but that's not true. Humility implies a fall from grace. What you feel now isn't humility. It's erosion, the steady wearing away of boundaries between you and the filth, between who you were and what you are now. You no longer know where the line is. Maybe there never was one. You crouch and dig deeper, knowing it won't matter. By nightfall, someone will fill this pit with what their body couldn't hold. And by next week, someone else will dig beside it, cursing the same flies, breathing the same sour wind. Above you, the sky continues its dull impression of permanence. A weak sun presses against the clouds, making the camp feel more like an overexposed memory than a place built to hold men. There are no birds, or if there are, they've learned not to sing here. You pause and sit on a nearby stone, the shovel leaning beside you like a tired companion. The handle is still warm from your grip. You look at your hands, they shake slightly, not from effort, but from having nowhere else to put the tremble. You remember washing once, not long ago, a stream with pebbles, cool water, the smell of pine needles. You scrubbed your palms until the skin turned red and felt proud when they didn't smell like smoke anymore. That memory feels impossible now, like it happened to someone with better luck and cleaner boots. You wipe your hands on your trousers anyway. It does nothing. A soldier passes in the distance. He doesn't look at you, just keeps walking, carrying a bundle of sticks, like they might catch fire if he stares hard enough. You envy him for the burden that doesn't reek. You rise again. You dig again. You find a patch of earth softer than the rest and press the blade deep. The soil gives in a way that reminds you too much of flesh. You don't stop. Some filth doesn't wash off because it never meant to. Back at the barrel, you rinse the shovel quickly, out of courtesy more than effectiveness. The water's already tinted with yesterday. You swirl it once, twice, then lean the tool against a stump. It'll wait for the next man, just like it waited for you. No one greets you when you return to camp. You walk past a group of men playing at dice with stones and whittled bones. One of them nods. It might be for you. It might not. You don't nod back. You're not sure your neck will allow it without cracking. Inside your tent, the air is thicker than outside, trapped between canvas and sweat. You sit cross-legged on your bedroll. You breathe shallowly. You stare at your fingernails and don't count how many are still clean. Someone nearby is humming. The tune is low, tuneless, familiar only in the way habits become. It fades halfway through, either forgotten or swallowed. You lie down but don't close your eyes. Not yet. Sleep won't come quickly. Your body might be tired, but your skin still remembers what it touched. It always does. Just long enough to remind you. There are places where speech is rare, not because words are forbidden, but because what needs to be said would break the quiet that keeps people stitched together. You roll to one side and let your face rest on the pillow. It smells like last week, maybe longer. And still, somehow, you're grateful for it, because it's not the latrine. There's a barrel near the edge of camp that claims to hold water, though you're not sure it deserves the word. It stands beneath a slanted pole, half covered in mildew, surrounded by muddy footprints and a ring of soggy earth that's never quite dried. This is where the men come to wash, or at least to pretend they've remembered how. There's no soap. There's no towel, just the barrel, a handful of rags, and the quiet lie that something might feel cleaner afterward. You approach without ceremony. Your shirt clings to your back, damp with sweat that never had the chance to cool. The air stinks of iron and wool, of damp canvas and things unspoken. You press your palms to the rim of the barrel and peer in. The water is gray, motionless, with a thin film on the surface that trembles faintly in the breeze, too still to be fresh, too murky to be trusted. Still, you dip the rag in. The cloth was once white, maybe. Now it's a shade of linen that doesn't belong to nature. You wring it out slowly, letting cold droplets fall against your wrists like a warning. Then you begin. You start with your face, because it's the place that feels furthest from the rest of you. The water is shockingly cold, not sharp but indifferent, like it has no intention of being helpful. It smears the dirt rather than lifting it. You wipe across your cheeks, your brow, the corners of your mouth. You feel the salt of old sweat mix with the grime, and for a moment you wonder if the effort is just ceremonial. You've been told that cleanliness is next to godliness, but in this place, it's next to nothing, next to rot, next to rust, next to silence. The cloth moves over your neck, then your shoulders, tracing lines of fatigue your body didn't ask permission to carry. You wipe down your forearms, then pause. Your skin beneath the grime feels thinner somehow, almost brittle. The water doesn't cleanse it, simply relocates the filth. You watch the streaks run down your arms like ink. A boy, barely 16, stands a few paces away. He's washing his feet in a wooden basin, one sock tucked in his waistband, the other already soaked. He doesn't look at you, but he glances. There's an unspoken rule here: give space, even when there isn't any. He rinses quickly and steps back, not bothering to dry off before jamming his foot back into his boot. You nod at him, barely. He doesn't return it, but the silence between you is easier than words. You wring the rag out again, and it hangs limp in your hand like something recently wounded. You haven't touched your chest, haven't lifted your shirt. You know what's underneath a map of dried sweat, chafed skin, bruises from armor worn too long, and scars that never bothered to fade. You leave it alone. You're not here to be clean. You're here to remind your body it still has a shape. You splash water on the back of your neck and shiver, not from cold, but from contact. It's the first time something has touched you softly in days. You're not cleansing yourself. You're reminding your skin that it still has edges, somewhere behind you. Two men argue over firewood. You hear the scrape of iron on stone. A cooking pot rattles. Life continues even while you try, pointlessly, to remember how it felt to feel human. The sky overhead doesn't change. Still gray, still heavy. You look up anyway, half hoping the sun might offer some heat, some proof that time is moving, but there's nothing. Just the faint sound of a crow somewhere in the trees. Even the birds here keep their distance. You wipe your hands one last time, pressing the rag between your fingers. The dirt hasn't left. It's just moved around, like guilt that finds a new corner to settle in. You know you'll smell the same by midday sweat, leather, smoke, the faint sweet reek of iron. And yet, you keep going. Not because it changes anything, but because it feels like something, a ritual, a defiance. The pretense of control in a place where your name doesn't matter, where your meals have no taste, where your orders arrive without voice. Most men in the camp don't wash. Not really. They splash water on their faces and call it enough. Some commanders even discourage it, whispering that cleanliness softens the will, as if grime makes men harder, as if rot makes them loyal. But the truth is simpler. There's only so much water, and none of it is clean enough to waste on skin. You wring out the cloth again. It drips slowly, like something bleeding without urgency. Then you drape it over the edge of the barrel, where the other rags hang like surrender flags that never saw a battle. You walk away, damp at the temples, hands tingling faintly from the cold. No one notices. The act was for you alone. It always is. Passing a tent, you catch the scent of something burning fat, maybe, or wool, or memory. You don't pause to check. Your boots are heavier now, not from water, but from the weight of having tried. You reach your sleeping spot and sit. A man near you spits into the dirt, rubs his chin, and starts threading twine through a broken belt loop. Another sharpens a stick with a stone. You join their silence without asking. The wind picks up slightly. It doesn't cool you. It only moves the air around, as if pretending it might take the stink with it. You rub your hands together again. They're cleaner, maybe, but not changed. Even cleanliness becomes a memory when nothing around you encourages it. Later that evening, you lie back and stare at your palms in the dimming light. They look the same. Dry, cracked. Still yours. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you remember the sound of water in a basin made of stone. The way it echoed when poured. The way it shimmered when the sun hit it just right. You open your eyes again. There is no shimmer here. Only the rag, the barrel, and the quiet lie you tell yourself that the next wash will matter more. You don't remember when the armor was given to you. It wasn't a ceremony. There was no fitting. No one measured your shoulders or asked if the breastplate pinched at the ribs. It appeared one morning, leaning against the tent post with a dull smear of rust across the left flank, as if it had already failed someone else and been passed along in silence. The leather straps were cracked. The mail was tangled like old rope. There was no note, no instruction, just the unspoken expectation that you'd wear it and not ask whether it belonged to a dead man. It doesn't fit. Of course. That's the first truth of a medieval army camp. Nothing fits. Not the armor, not the food, not the life. Everything is borrowed from someone stronger, thinner, richer, or already gone. You hoist it onto your frame with a motion that feels more like shouldering a burden than donning protection. The weight settles unevenly across your back. One side dips lower than the other. You try to adjust the strap, but it stiffens beneath your fingers like bark. There's a bench beside the forge, if a few stones and a blackened log count as such. You sit, not because you want to, but because standing in this weight feels like confessing to something you never did. The blacksmith is nearby, hammering something that might once have been a helm. He doesn't look up. He never does. The forge smokes without heat, like a memory of fire rather than its presence. There's no roar, no glowing iron, just smolder and the slow ache of things refusing to mend. You pull off one of the greaves and begin to scrub it. The cloth in your hand was a sleeve once. Now it's just friction with history. Flakes of rust curl off the metal, falling like burnt petals into the mud. It doesn't shine beneath, just dull gray. No gleam, no reflection. You're not sure whether that's comforting or not. The armor doesn't protect you, it remembers every blow someone else forgot to survive. You lift the chest plate and tilt it forward, peering into the inside. A few strands of hair cling to the padding. You look away. You've stopped wondering about the men who came before, not because you don't care, but because there are too many. Every dent is a scar you can't explain. Every buckle a reminder that someone once stood where you stand, and then didn't. It's said that the average soldier in the medieval army camp was lucky to own a single piece of proper armor. Most wore scraps mail stitched to linen, boiled leather passed off as steel. The wealthy had full suits. The rest made do with what they could strap on fast enough to die in. You drag the rag over your vambrace again, this time harder. The metal hisses faintly beneath your breath, as if resenting the effort. Water pools in the grooves, dark and unmoving. You think about the rain from last night, how it seeped into your tent, how it soaked your socks until your toes went numb. That same rain now nests in the folds of your gear, feeding the rust like a slow rot. Someone passes behind you, their own armor clinking softly like a wind chime dropped in mud. They don't greet you. You don't turn. There's no need. Everyone knows everyone is here. No one knows anyone's name. When everything you wear was built for someone else, even your shadow doesn't look like it belongs. You try on the full set, or what counts for it. The cuirass presses against your ribs when you breathe too deeply. The pauldrons ride too high, cutting into your neck if you tilt your head wrong. You raise your arms, just to feel how movement is rationed now. The range is limited, like wearing a decision you didn't make. There's an old man older than most sitting nearby, oiling a blade with deliberate, almost reverent strokes. His armor is simpler, padded leather, patched in 7 places, stitched with horsehair where the seams failed. He doesn't look at you, but he speaks anyway. Don't fight it, he says. Wear it like it hates you. Then it won't surprise you when it does. You don't answer, not because you disagree, but because the truth doesn't always require acknowledgement. Sometimes it just sits beside you, shared in silence. You stand again. The armor shifts with a sound that's more sigh than creak. It doesn't clatter. It resents. Every joint a conversation between metal and time. Every rivet a choice that someone else made under better light. You step forward, slowly, testing the weight. Your knees remember the burden before your mind does. There's a drag to your gait now, a new rhythm, clumsy, reluctant, protective only in the way a coffin is protective. Sometimes, what we carry for protection only reminds us how vulnerable we really are. You pass a line of men practicing with wooden pikes. Their armor is similar, mismatched, uneven, flaking. Some wear nothing but cloth under their mail. Others have shields too large for their arms, dragging like second bodies at their side. The instructor yells something about form, but his voice is distant, like thunder behind a closed window. One man stumbles. His chest plate splits at the seam. The sound is dull, like a secret cracking open. He swears, drops the pike, and stares down at the break as if it just betrayed him personally. No one laughs. A broken piece of armor isn't funny. It's fatal. You adjust your own plate, feeling a tear in the leather where rot has started eating through. It's easy to believe the steel will fail before the enemy does. Most men here didn't even own the armor they wore. Lords issued it like borrowed time, reclaiming it after campaigns ended. And when it failed loudly. Some would do anything to loosen the rust. There were stories of desperate soldiers, urinating on their mail just to make it pliable again. Whether it worked didn't matter. Sometimes, doing anything at all was the only defense left. And some historians still argue whether it was the failing iron that killed more soldiers, or the fear that what they wore wouldn't hold when they needed it most. You raise your arm again. The plate shifts. It doesn't creak, it hesitates. And still, you wear it. It's not dramatic. There's no clash of arms, no scuffle in the dirt, no whispered accusation behind the tent. You simply reach for your belt, and it's gone. The knife you've carried every day since the first march, small, bone-handled, dull at the tip but sharp enough to matter, has vanished. You check twice, then a third time. You run your fingers along the leather strap where it used to hang. Nothing. And then the strangest part, you don't feel anger first. You feel confusion. You feel the softest echo of shame. Because in a medieval army camp, nothing is truly yours. Not the blanket that only covers half your feet. Not the cup you drink from. Not even the space you sleep in. You don't own these things. You borrow them from the silence around you. And when they disappear, the silence doesn't return them. It just waits. You rise and scan the camp slowly. No one looks suspicious. No one avoids your gaze. No one fidgets or grins. That's the rule here. If you're going to steal, do it cleanly. If you're going to lose something, do it quietly. You meet a few eyes, then drop your gaze. You've seen enough. They don't need to say anything. You're not the first to be picked clean by invisible hands, and you won't be the last. You sit back down and stare at the place your knife used to rest, tracing the empty loop with your thumb. It's not the loss itself that stings. It's the fact that you didn't notice it happening, that your attention wandered for long enough for someone to reach into your life and take something from it. Your breath catches not sharply, just enough to make you pause. You exhale, and the air comes out thinner than you expected. A knife in this place isn't just a tool, it's a symbol. You used it for bread, for tightening straps, for scraping wax from the rim of a candle stub. It wasn't a weapon, not for you, but it felt like a line between you and helplessness. And now that line is gone. You don't tell anyone. There's no one to tell. You consider asking the boy who sharpens blades near the forge, but he's too young to answer without flinching. And you don't want guilt that doesn't belong to you. You watch a man across the camp slice a turnip in half, with a blade that looks familiar, but only from a distance. It could be yours. It could be anyone's. You don't move. You don't accuse. Accusation here is a kind of surrender. It shows that something mattered, and things that matter are easy to take. Instead, you walk to your tent and sit, cross-legged, staring at your boots. One of the laces is frayed. You'd normally trim it, not anymore. A few feet away, someone sharpens a blade on a stone. The sound steady and soft. Rhythmic. Intimate. Almost. The edge of metal against stone has a music to it, a repetition that reminds you of a heart beating, or breath being drawn carefully through the nose. You try to let that sound calm you. You fail. You carry loss like a pebble in your boot, small, persistent, unignorable. The sky hasn't shifted. It still wears its morning gray like a shrug. The camp hums in its usual low-tone footsteps, muttering, the occasional clang of metal, but none of it touches you. You feel apart, slightly out of rhythm, as if you've been walking in step with something and just lost the beat. You rub your hands together. You didn't realize how often you touched the knife throughout the day, checking it, adjusting it, curling your fingers around it when nothing else gave you shape. Now your hands don't know what to do. They fidget without purpose. Most men here have lost something: a spoon, a pair of woolen socks, a coin pressed into a seam, and if they're lucky, they lose it to the camp. If they're unlucky, they lose it to fire, or mud, or the long hand of someone hungrier than they are. You think about the man who took it not with bitterness, but curiosity. Was it out of need, spite, or just opportunity? You wonder if he felt anything, a twinge, a grin, a small rush, like catching a rabbit in the dark. You'll never know. And maybe that's the worst part. The story ends with a missing knife and silence. There's no justice here, only redistribution. Maybe history doesn't repeat. It just lingers longer than we expect. Later, you tear a strip from an old tunic and knot it where the knife used to be. Not because it will help, not because it will hold anything, but because the absence needs a placeholder. You tie it slowly, with deliberate fingers, like marking a grave. The fabric flutters when you stand, brushing your thigh like a question. You feel lighter now, not in the way of relief, but in the way a wall feels lighter after a door is kicked in. Something's been removed, and now something else has to enter. You leave the tent and walk toward the cookfire. You don't know why. You're not hungry. There's nothing left to do. You just need to be near flame. A man beside the pot stirs it with a ladle blackened by soot. He looks up once, then returns to the motion. You crouch near the edge, feeling the heat lick your knees. The warmth isn't comfort, it's presence. You wrap your arms around yourself and rest your chin on your forearm. You stare at the fire, and for a moment, you think you see a shape in the flames, a hilt, maybe a glint of something steel. But when you blink, it's gone. The fire cracks, and the illusion falls back into embers. You sit there a long time, not waiting, just adjusting. You don't hear the call, you feel it. The camp doesn't use horns anymore. The last one cracked weeks ago, splintered like bone underfoot, and no one had the time or the patience to carve another. So now the call comes in the form of motion, a clattering of boots, a grunted command, a clench in the back of your neck when the rhythm around you changes. You're already standing when it starts, not because you want to be ahead, but because something in your body knows that staying seated too long makes you a target. So you step into line. Not your proper place, just a place, one among many, boots pressed to rutted mud, faces blank, hands empty except for what they've been given. In this case, a pole. Wooden, weighted unevenly, smooth with sweat and repetition. A practice pike. The man in front of you stinks of onions and mold, The one beside you coughs into his elbow without apology. You don't react. You've already learned that nothing contagious here waits for permission. The drill begins with a shout. Not a word. Just a sound, guttural, sharp, designed not to inform, but to wake the part of you still holding on to sleep. You thrust the pike forward, and the motion jars your shoulder in the exact same place it jarred yesterday. You step, then stab, then retract, then hold. Again, again, again. The man behind you moves too fast. His pike clips your elbow. You hiss, barely, and adjust your stance without turning. He doesn't apologize. You wouldn't either. You don't sweat because you're moving. You sweat because you're layered wool over linen, leather over skin, grime over everything. Each thrust feels like dragging your body through a second body. Every correction from the instructor is shouted, not for your benefit, but to remind everyone that shouting still works. You wonder if obedience is just muscle memory after enough repetition. The instructor stops calling movements after a while. He just stares, walks between rows like a farmer inspecting crops he no longer believes in. He taps a man on the back of the thigh with the flat of his blade, too wide a stance. He doesn't say it out loud. The man narrows his legs. Another man blinks sweat from his eye, flinches as the instructor passes, then goes back to stabbing the air. Your stomach growls, and the sound surprises you not because of its volume, but because it dares to speak in the middle of this rhythm. Hunger in this camp is usually patient. Today, it bites. You haven't eaten since dawn, and dawn gave you little, a crust, a bruise of an apple, a drink that tasted more of tin than water. The energy is gone already, replaced by that hollow twisting tightness that no longer inspires panic, only fog. You tighten your grip. The wood slips slightly, slick with sweat. You drive it forward again, planting your foot, shifting your weight like they taught you. Your muscles obey. Your mind floats a little behind, trailing like a cloak caught on something you've passed but didn't notice. The man to your right grunts. His pike jams into the dirt. He curses. The instructor doesn't react. Mistakes aren't punished anymore. They're cataloged. If none of this is making sense anymore, you're exactly where you should be. Drills are supposed to prepare you for battle. That's what they say. But everyone here knows the truth. Drills are for surviving the wait, for filling the space between meals and orders, and whatever death waits at the far edge of the next field. There's no illusion left that any of you are knights. Your practice in flesh. A line meant to hold long enough for someone richer to flank the enemy properly. A man 2 rows down drops his pike. It lands with a wet thud. He bends to pick it up and winces as his back locks mid-motion. The instructor pauses in his pacing. The man freezes. For a moment, no one breathes. Then the instructor turns away. The man straightens slowly, reclaims the weapon, rejoins the rhythm. The pikes rise, fall, rise, fall. Again, there's a rhythm in the pain that doesn't require approval. You think of the first time you drilled, how awkward it felt, how strange to move in unison, how absurd to pretend a wooden stick could save your life. You thought it mattered then whether your foot landed properly, whether your shoulders stayed square. Now you move the way reeds bend in wind, not with strength, but with surrender. Somewhere nearby, a fight breaks out. Not loud, just the crunch of movement, a boot scraping stone, a grunt. 2 men roll in the dirt, fists swinging. A pike clatters aside. No one stops them, not even the instructor. Eventually, they stop themselves. One walks off holding his cheek. The other picks up his weapon and rejoins the line. The drill never paused. You stab forward again. The motion feels like punctuation. not of a sentence, of a silence. You switch arms briefly just for a moment of relief. The left is weaker, less practiced. The thrust is sloppy. The instructor doesn't notice, or he does and chooses to let it pass. You shift again, falling back into the dominant hand. The pike fits there like it knows you, like it's grown into the shape of your calluses. You wonder how many more days you'll be doing this. You wonder if, in some far camp, there are men still drilling from a war that ended years ago. No one told them, so they just kept moving. You start to feel the ache in your thighs, the burn in your wrists. Your breath becomes more noticeable, more present, a rhythm overlaid on the one you're acting out with wood and sweat. And then, suddenly, it stops. A grunt, a whistle. The instructor lifts one hand palm open, fingers spread, a gesture without poetry. Everyone lowers their weapons. The line loosens. No one talks. You step back. You stretch your fingers. You exhale through your teeth. Someone near you leans on their pike like a cane. Another drops to one knee, not from reverence, but from collapse. You turn and walk away, pike slung across your shoulder. The hunger is still there. Louder now, maybe. Or maybe it just feels louder because the drill is gone. Either way, it will outlast you. You try not to take it personally, at first. It begins with small things. Someone brushing past you with a muttered, "Move." Another man pointing at you and calling out, "Hey," instead of whatever name you told them yesterday. But then it happens again, and again, until it's not small anymore. Until you begin to forget what it feels like to hear your name out loud. You say it sometimes, just to remind yourself, not in full, not proudly, just under your breath when no one is near. A whisper into your own collar, like a note slipped under a locked door. You're still here, it says. You haven't disappeared entirely. Not yet. But the camp does not care for names. It does not memorize. It does not ask. It simplifies. You are you. You are that one. You are third tent from the left. And slowly, this becomes fact. At first, you correct people. It's you begin, but the sentence withers. They've already moved on. You try again the next day and the next. But each time you speak, it feels more like shouting across a river no one believes exists. Eventually, you stop. Names are for letters, for tombstones, not for days like these. Some men here still cling to theirs, speaking them boldly, inscribing them in the dirt beside their tents, even humming them into the rhythms of their labor like prayers. But those men are new. Give them time. The camp sands everyone down eventually. What doesn't get stolen gets forgotten. And when the captain calls out orders, his voice rough with tobacco and distance, he never uses names. Only roles. You, with the boots. You, move the cart. You two dig. It works. It saves time. It strips away the need for connection. The job gets done. That's all that matters. You begin to notice how much of you is vanishing. Not just your name, but your voice, your laugh, your habits, the way you once gestured with your hands when telling stories. No one tells stories here anymore. There's no time, no audience, only mud and marching, and the kind of sleep that erases more than it restores. The medieval army camp runs on forgetfulness. That's what makes it bearable. You sit by the fire one evening with a man you think you've met before. He nods at you like you've shared something, but you don't remember what. You're not sure he does either. He tells you a tale about a village he once left, about a girl who gave him dried figs in a wool scarf. He says her name softly. He looks at the ground when he says it. Then he asks you yours. You hesitate, not because you've forgotten, but because it feels like it doesn't belong to you anymore, like trying to wear a coat that no longer fits. You say it anyway, and when you do, it sounds strange in your own mouth. The syllables have softened, the edges worn down. He repeats it back, mispronounces it, then nods like it's good enough. You don't correct him. The next day, he calls you hey. You don't answer at first, and he shrugs, assuming you didn't hear. You did. You pass a man digging a trench, who hums a tune that sounds familiar, but you can't place it. You nod as you pass. He doesn't look up. At mealtime, someone hands you a bowl and says, "For you." No name, just you, as if that word still means something specific in this place. You take it and sit in silence, chewing slowly, wondering what it would take to make someone remember you. A gesture, a fight, a death. You shake the thought away. The camp doesn't keep records. It barely keeps people. The only names that matter are carved into swords, sewn into banners, etched into war songs that will never mention men like you. You walk past a wagon loaded with sacks of grain, and one of them has initials stitched in the corner. Not yours, but it makes you pause. Someone thought to mark it. Someone wanted to make sure it didn't get lost. You stare at the thread for a long time before moving on. That night, as the fires dim and the tents rustle with sleep, you lie awake staring at the canvas above you, mouthing your name in the dark, softly, just once, so that tomorrow, when no one says it, at least you'll remember someone did. It begins without drama. You're walking past the stables, bucket in hand, meant to fetch water for someone you no longer remember while you obey. The sun is high, but not generous. It burns instead of warms, pulling moisture out of everything that might have once been alive wood, leather, breath. The horses are tethered in the shade, or what's left of it. Most stand still, heads lowered, tails flicking in slow motion. The smell is thick dung, old hay, dried sweat, rust. But it's the quiet that makes you look. You notice one of the horses shifting wrong, not in pain, just awkward, like something's missing between motion and intention. It lifts its front leg, hesitates, then lowers it again. The motion repeats, then stops, and then, with no sound but the settling of hooves, it begins to sink. You don't realize what's happening at first. No one does. It looks like kneeling, like surrender. First the front legs, then the hind, a body folding in slow stages until the whole thing just rests. A stable hand yells, not a warning, an accusation, as if the collapse were a betrayal. Some deaths in camp are loud. This one arrives on tiptoe. Men rush over. One pulls at the halter. Another slaps the neck, hard. The horse's eyes flutter but do not open fully. Foam has dried at the corners of its mouth. Its chest still rises, but slowly, like it's unsure whether to keep going. You step closer. Not to help, you wouldn't know how, but because the stillness pulls you. You set the bucket down and watch. The stable hand kneels and presses a hand to the animal's neck, then to its belly. He curses once, then calls for water. The irony does not go unnoticed. In a camp where men go thirsty, the first bucket that matters today is for a dying horse. Someone else fetches it. You stand aside. They wet the horse's lips. Its tongue does not respond. Someone fans its face with their hat. Another starts shouting about the sun, about shelter, about not leaving them out too long. The arguments begin about whose fault it is, about whether it can stand, about whether it should. A captain arrives, sees the scene, doesn't speak, just looks. You recognize the look. It's the same one he gave a soldier 2 days ago when his leg broke during a spar, as if damage were something to observe, not to feel. The horse doesn't die, not right away. It simply stops being part of the day. They manage to drag it slightly toward the shade. Someone lays a damp cloth over its neck. Someone else walks away mid-task, already assuming how the story ends. You stay, not because you care, exactly, but because you can't bring yourself to look at anything else. There's something in the way the horse breathes, rasping, deep, yet quiet, that feels familiar, not because you've heard it before, but because you carry it. You know what it is to breathe, like continuing is a favor you're doing someone else. A small fly lands on its flank. It doesn't twitch. You turn your eyes away, toward the rest of the camp. Everything is still moving. Men shouting, fires stoked, carts dragging crates of nails or onions or things you no longer pretend to catalog. No one has time to stop. Not for this. The stable hand wipes his eyes when he thinks no one's watching. You are, but you say nothing. In this place, grief has learned how to hide in plain sight. Later, you hear the horse did not make it, but you already knew. They don't bury it. There's no time, no space. The body is dragged beyond the ridge, out past the latrine pits, and left for the crows or wolves or whatever else lives on what people no longer need. You think about that ridge, about how many things get left there: broken tools, burnt cloth, bent nails, bodies. You wonder if the land remembers them all, or if memory fades even in soil. That night, you try to sleep, but your mind keeps folding back to the image not of death, but of descent. The way the legs gave way one by one, the way it didn't fight the fall. You picture your own body doing the same someday, not in battle, just here. One day too hot, one breath too dry, one weight too many. You turn onto your side. The straw beneath you crackles like paper. Your muscles ache in ways that no longer announce themselves. Pain is background now. You close your eyes. You tell yourself not to think of the horse. You fail. You wonder if anyone dreams in this place, or if sleep is just another kind of forgetting. The next morning, someone jokes about the stable hand naming all his animals, like they're people. He scoffs. Everyone laughs, not cruelly, just distantly, as if the act of naming anything in a place like this feels absurd. You don't laugh, because you remember when you had a name, and you remember what it felt like to fall slowly in front of people who didn't notice. And because even now, you don't know what part of you collapsed watching that horse, but something did. Something hasn't stood up since. It begins with the parchment, not the message. You're handed a square of it by a passing courier, one who doesn't look you in the eye, just drops the sheet as if performing a chore long rehearsed. It's yellowed and creased, probably reused. It smells faintly of wax and dust and rain, like it's carried more regrets than news. For hours, you don't touch it. It sits beside your cot like a question you don't want to answer. You don't know who gave them your name. You're not even sure it has your name. But someone said letters help, that writing something, anything back to someone else makes you feel like you exist again. You wait until the sun slides low and the camp begins to quiet. Fires pop like breath catching in a throat. The wind flutters the tent flaps. A boy sobs quietly in a far corner, and nobody tells him to stop. You pull the parchment into your lap. Your hands are dirty, cracked, trembling in the joints like they've carried too many hours without rest. You wipe them on your tunic, then regret it. The ink will smear. The letter deserves steadiness, and you can't give it that. Still, you try. Dear. You stop. The word looks strange already. Too formal, too distant, too heavy for the thin sheet it rests on. You think of your mother, of her fingers, crooked from bread dough and years of candle making, of your brother, always trying to prove strength before it bloomed, of someone else too, though you don't say their name anymore, not even in your thoughts. You wonder if they remember you. You dip the quill again. The ink is thick, slow. It clings like regret. You write, I'm still alive. And for a moment, it feels like a spell. But the moment passes. You stare at the words until they feel dishonest. You cross them out not because they're untrue, but because they feel like a lie told too early. You start again. You want to say what it's really like: the mud, the cold, the silence that tastes like iron, the way no one looks at you for more than a heartbeat unless they're giving an order. But how do you describe a life made of absence? You write a few more lines, then scratch them out again. You start to remember things you thought you'd forgotten: the smell of home after rain, the color of the wood by the hearth, the sound of someone calling your name when it wasn't a command. And that's when your hand starts to shake. Some memories aren't painful because of what they show, but because of what they make the present feel like. You keep going. You tell them, finally, about the camp. Not in details, but in hints. That you wake up tired and go to sleep more tired. That food comes late and never warm. That the only music is the clatter of tools and the coughs of men too young to have old lungs. You try to make it sound survivable. You say things like, "We're managing, and we take turns with the better boots, and there's a fire most nights." You don't say how the fire doesn't catch half the time. You don't say how the boots don't fit anyone. You don't say how you're managing only in the sense that you haven't collapsed yet. You reach the end of the page. It's not much, but it's all the parchment allows. You sign your name not proudly, but like someone touching a mirror to see if the reflection moves. Then you fold it carefully, as if the words might crumble. You place it under your cot for the night, unsure whether you'll send it at all. "The courier leaves at dawn," they said. You lie awake staring at the tent's roof, and your thoughts unspool like threads cut from a loom, directionless, soft, slow. You wonder if anyone who receives the letter will understand the parts you didn't write, the silences, the wait between words. You think of home not as a place now, but as a sound you miss hearing. In the morning, you slip the folded paper into the courier's satchel. You don't say a word. He doesn't either. You both understand the letter is not a message, it's a confession, sealed with dirt and doubt and longing. And maybe, just maybe, it'll reach someone who can still say your name out loud without flinching. The boy doesn't speak when he hands you the bowl. He doesn't need to. Neither do you. The exchange has happened too many times to carry meaning anymore. A wooden bowl, warm in the palms, steam rising like memory, a smell that is not quite meat, not quite onion, not quite anything at all, but still, it's food. Technically, you thank him with your eyes, but he's already walking away, bowls clinking against one another in the sack he drags behind. His boots leave shallow impressions in the damp ground, each step pooling with gray water, as if the earth is too tired to resist. You sit on a low crate outside the tent and cradle the bowl in your hands like it's something sacred. Not because it is, but because there's nothing else to hold on to. Inside the soup, if you can call it that, floats one translucent sliver of cabbage, a tattered edge of something green, and 3 grains of barley spaced as if they were arguing. You stir with the spoon, slowly, not to mix anything. There's nothing to mix but to delay the moment of swallowing. The water is hot. That alone makes it a small miracle. Around you, no one speaks. Eating is its own conversation. The sound of slurping, the clatter of bowls set down too hard, the occasional cough, these are the language of the evening. You watch a man gnaw on the edge of his spoon like it might yield more than the broth ever could. You drink slowly. It's less about filling your stomach and more about not finishing too soon. This is the last act of the day you control. Across from you, someone mutters, "At least it's warm." Another replies, "So is mud, sometimes." No one laughs. The air carries only the sound of steam and shallow breath. Your fingers are stiff around the bowl. You shift your grip. Feel the rough grain of the wood dig into your palm. You haven't tasted anything in days. Not really. The soup just moves across your tongue like a ghost. It's not there to delight, only to confirm you're still here, still eating, still surviving. You glance at the others. Most stare into their bowls, as if reading some future in the floating debris. One man blesses his quietly before sipping, and you wonder if the gods would even listen here. Would they care? Out in this damp, distant place where names are forgotten faster than bread goes stale. You lean back against the post, chew on nothing, and watch the mist roll over the hills beyond camp. The sky is the color of boiled stone, evening without flame. And then, quietly, the thought comes, if you're still listening, and if this quiet rhythm, this heavy little world, has helped you feel less alone, you could leave a sign that you passed through, not for me, but for the ones walking behind. A silent gesture, a light touch. Let me know where you're hearing this from, and if you've ever had soup that told a better story than this one. The bowl is empty now. You don't remember finishing it. That's the thing with hunger, it disappears without ceremony. You set the bowl down near your feet, where it joins a scattered row of others. No one comes to take them. No one thanks you. No one sees you. The fire nearby cracks but doesn't grow. The wood's too damp, always is. Smoke curls sideways, dragging cold with it. Someone hums again. Not a song, just sound. It catches in the air like breath that didn't finish. You don't turn your head. Don't ask who it is. You just let it exist. That's the gift here, presence without question. And as you sit, your limbs go quiet. You're not asleep, but you're no longer awake either. Just dimmed, like the last coal before it gives up heat. You tell yourself you'll get up soon, that you'll stretch, clean the spoon, walk the perimeter. But nothing inside you believes it, not fully. You close your eyes for a moment, just to listen to your own heartbeat. And then, almost without realizing, your thoughts begin to slow. It's okay. You don't have to keep up. You don't have to finish. The story will keep walking for you. Let your shoulders soften. Let the breath settle. Let the bowl be empty. Let the cold move past you. You're still here, and tonight, that's enough. It starts with a whisper, the kind of murmur that you first mistake for wind brushing canvas, or the shifting of straw under a restless body. But then it rises just slightly, the edge of someone's voice sharpening, slicing through the fog of exhaustion that blankets the camp deeper than any wool ever could. You don't open your eyes, not at first. Conflict in a place like this is like fire, rarely useful, usually dangerous, and always someone else's business. But the voices crack louder. 2 men, maybe 3, and the word that keeps repeating, over and over like a cracked bell, is blanket. One of them is furious. The other is quiet, too quiet. That silence is its own kind of rage. A shadow passes by the tent flap. You hear boots crunch gravel, bodies shifting. The canvas ripples slightly in the night air, like the camp itself is holding its breath. You sit up, slowly. The blanket you were given, thin, scratchy, barely longer than your legs, is still wrapped around your shoulders. You hold it closer without thinking. Out there, under a flickering torch, you see them 2 men not much older than you. One has a red welt blooming on his cheek. The other's fist is still half clenched, shaking from more than just cold. Between them lies the disputed blanket, mottled brown, frayed at the corners, already stained with someone else's night sweat. A thing no one would want until it's all that's left to want. They don't swing again, not because they don't want to, but because they've already said the loudest thing they could say. The silence after an argument cuts deeper than the shout that came before it. No officers interfere. No one tries to stop them. not even the cook. In a place like this, a blanket becomes sovereignty, a rare moment where a man can say, "This is mine," and be heard. You wonder what started it. Did one of them steal it? Was it traded and taken back? Or did both men simply reach for it at the same time, neither willing to let go, neither strong enough to hold on? The moment passes slowly. The taller one spits at the ground. The other mutters something beneath breath. And then, almost as suddenly as it flared, the fire dims. One walks off. The other stays seated, now clutching the blanket with both hands, like a child guarding his only comfort. The others return to their silence. So do you. But something lingers in the air, something sour and low, like regret boiled down to its bones. You lie back down, but the tension crawls along your spine like a chill. You shift. The blanket feels heavier now, not in weight, but in meaning. It's not warmth you hold, it's luck. And tonight, someone else ran out. Above, the sky is moonless. Or perhaps you've forgotten how to look. A soft sound comes from the corner. Not a cry, not quite. Just breath, caught in someone's throat. Someone trying not to be heard. You don't move. You don't speak. You just lie there, listening. To grief, to anger, to the threadbare lullaby of soldiers trying not to unravel, And in that quiet, it comes to you not the fear of battle, nor the ache of hunger, but the realization that here, in this camp, dignity is rationed more strictly than food. A blanket is not just a blanket. It is the last illusion of control, the final inch of something that still answers to you. And once that goes, what's left? You pull yours closer. Not because it's cold, but because, for now, you still can. Some nights don't break, they bend. This is one of those nights, quiet in the way only something too heavy to move can be quiet. You're not asleep. Not truly. But the world is farther than it was, and your body has lost interest in remembering where it ends. You lie wrapped in a blanket still damp at the edges, head turned sideways against a bundled tunic, spine pressed into the soft betrayal of packed dirt. Outside the tent, the fire is a red eye barely open. The last argument has long since melted into silence, but its heat still lingers not in voices, but in the way everyone now lies stiff, as if afraid that movement might stir something loose again. And then it begins. You hear it barely a thread at first. A voice, low, almost beneath breath. A melody so soft it sounds like remembering. You don't know who sings. You can't tell which direction it comes from. It floats in, like fog through canvas. A single man's voice. No instrument. No audience, just the hum of memory turned outward. He doesn't sing for company. He sings because if he doesn't, something inside might collapse. The tune is older than this war, older than this camp. Maybe something from the hills. Maybe a lullaby from a mother long buried, or a song once shared beside a hearth that had more than one log to burn. You don't recognize the words, but your bones do. Around you, no one moves, no one interrupts. Some lie stiller than before. The sound fills the cracks in you that even warmth never found. It isn't beautiful, not technically. The voice wavers, misses a note, dips into hoarseness. But in a world where nothing is offered freely, it's the kindest thing you've heard in weeks. And then just as suddenly it stops. No ending, no fade, just silence. Like someone walked past, like a shadow made of sound. You blink. The fire outside flickers once, as if trying to hold the echo a moment longer. But the camp stays still, the air forgets. You wait, you hope it might return. It doesn't. The man who sang if he even was real has gone quiet again. And somehow, that quiet hurts more than the hunger, more than the aching feet, more than the frost you can feel collecting on the inside of your tent flap. It hurts because for one moment, something human reached you and now it's gone. You stare into the dark, and something inside you whispers, if someone gave voice to their grief for just a minute and no one remembered, did it matter? You shift, and the canvas rustles softly. You almost hum the last phrase, try to hold it in your throat. But the moment has passed. Imitation would be theft. You let the silence stay. Still, something's changed in the night air. Not brighter, not lighter, just a little more known. You think of your home, not its walls or its roofs, but the way the evening sounded there. The insects, the dogs, the sound of someone dropping a bucket at the well, the scraping of spoons against tin, voices calling names you haven't heard in so long. They no longer fit inside your ears. You miss noise, but not the kind that drills commands or cracks whips. You miss the noise of people who see you. And suddenly, you wonder what sound you'll make when this ends. What song you'll hum when it's your turn to vanish. You close your eyes. If the song comes again, you won't miss it. But you also know, some songs are only sung once, and some silences are not meant to be filled. Time in the camp is a wounded animal. It doesn't run, it limps, and tonight, you feel it most. You step outside the tent, not because you want to. No one ever truly wants to, but because the air inside has gone stale with sleep and unspoken thoughts. Your limbs are stiff, not from rest, but from the long lie of stillness, the kind that presses into your bones until you forget they used to bend easily. The sky is gray, not dark, not light, just gray, as if it no longer cares to choose a direction, like a page left unfinished, or a candle halfway burned, forgotten in a room no one enters anymore. You look up, expecting stars. You want to count them, name them, even if wrongly. But there are none, only that heavy, unmoving grayness, the color of ash long after the fire has gone out. It stretches across the horizon like cloth pulled too tight over a wound. Someone nearby coughs, not sick, just weary, a noise that says nothing and means more. You stand in your boots, your ill-fitting, toe-crushing, mud-hardened boots, and you realize you don't know what time it is, or what day. You haven't known for a while. The bells stopped ringing last week, when someone stole the striker. The sun forgot how to rise cleanly above the trees, and the moon, if it exists, is somewhere else tonight. A guard passes you. He doesn't nod, just glances. You're neither friend nor threat, and that makes you invisible. The ground beneath your feet is still moist from yesterday's rain, or maybe it's tomorrow's. You've lost the language of time here. Everything feels like now, stretched into always. You sit down on a log that wasn't meant for sitting. It's been used for chopping kindling, gutting fish, sharpening blades. The scars of its history still visible in grooves and iron marks. It accepts your weight grudgingly. You watch the tents, dozens of them, identical, sagging, swaying slightly even though there's no wind. A few figures move between them, soft silhouettes with no purpose but to delay going back inside. Across from you, two men play dice, but not for coin. There's nothing left to gamble except maybe sleep. They don't speak, just roll, count, nod, over and over, as if trying to convince time that something is happening. Behind you, a dog whines, not the kind meant for battle, nor hunting, just a mutt that followed the march and was never sent away. It sleeps curled beside a barrel that leaks more than it holds. The dog twitches once, a dream, perhaps, or a memory of chasing something in a field that no longer exists. You close your eyes, open them again. Nothing has changed. The sky still hangs like a breath no one wants to release. You used to know what midnight looked like, and dawn, and dusk. Now it all blends like muddy water poured into a wine goblet. The kind of hour that belongs to no one, that cannot be written down or told later, because later doesn't come. A boy walks past, young, too young. His boots are tied with twine. One sleeve is torn and patched with a cloth that doesn't match. His face is drawn, but not yet hollow. He glances at you and then away, as if eye contact might cost him something. You wonder if he knows it's night, or if he, too, has let go of clocks. Above, the sky remains unchanged. And then only then you understand. It's not the sky that forgot to move. It's you, who once moved through days like a thread through a needle. You, who counted hours like rations, who used to chase the sun across fields just to reach the supper bell. You, who remembered birthdays, feast days, and the feeling of a week well lived. That you is gone, and in their place stands a figure too tired to want a future, and too used to the gray to mourn its constancy. The sky hasn't paused. You've simply stopped watching. You rest your hands on your knees, unsure if you rose to stand or meant to sit. The dice clatter again in the distance, a soft murmur of loss, and the boy disappears between tents. You exhale. The sky does not respond. The word comes just after nightfall, not in trumpet, not in roll call, not in any manner befitting something that could change the line between being and not. It arrives in the careless breath of one soldier to another, passed like gossip, but heavier. It lands in the camp like a nail in a coffin that hadn't yet been acknowledged. Tomorrow. You stand still when you hear it, not in fear, in recalibration, because everything suddenly shifts not physically, but silently. The men around you keep moving. Dice still roll, boots still scrape, spoons still stir what they dare call soup. But all of it is different now. Every action now exists under a new sun, a sun that hasn't yet risen, but already burns your skin. Tomorrow, there will be blood, not imagined, not feared, not rehearsed. Real, close, yours, maybe, someone else's, definitely. You sit down near the fire, but its warmth no longer registers. You look at your hand. The lines in your palm are the same as they were a minute ago, but now they look like maps, and you can't tell if they lead toward home or away from it. You're not ready. No one is. Readiness is a word people use when they want to feel noble in the face of the unkind. It's not real. You're fed enough to stand, trained enough to swing, armored enough to slow the blade maybe, but ready. That word belongs to stories, not to this tent full of men pretending they didn't hear. A man nearby hums, not the song from last night. This one is new, or old. Maybe it has no melody, just rhythm. A clenching sound, like teeth grinding softly through lips. It is not joy. It is survival disguised as noise. Someone ties their belt tighter. Another sharpens a knife that was already sharp. You find your own hands moving not from thought, but from inheritance. You reach for your blade and begin to clean it, though it needs no cleaning. Every motion is familiar, not yours, but borrowed from 1,000 men who came before. Men who sat like this, on the night before, in the time when things still had shape. And suddenly, that is what aches the most. The shape of things, because the moment you heard battle, time folded. You're no longer in the night. You're already in the morning. You're already walking, already charging, already screaming, or maybe you aren't. Maybe you're falling. Maybe you're the first to vanish in the mud and the clash and the roar that no one will write about. You look around. Faces look the same, but they are not. They're quieter, not in voice, in spirit. Some stare at the fire like it holds their last memory. Others look down at their food, lifting spoon to mouth with mechanical grace, as if pretending that nothing matters is their last act of power. A young soldier tries to joke. It lands like a stone in a lake that was already frozen. No one responds. You think of your boots. Tomorrow, they will be wet, heavy. You'll wish you wore different socks if you live long enough to wish. You think of your sword. You wonder if you'll use it right, if it'll stick in bone, if you'll drop it, if you'll be holding it when you fall. You think of the man next to you. You don't know his name, but he's leaned against you before. You've cursed at his snoring. You once shared a crust of bread that neither of you admitted was moldy. You wonder if he'll scream, or if he's done this before. You don't ask, because speaking now is a kind of betrayal. To acknowledge the fear makes it real. So instead, you exist in this strange, sacred hush. It is the quiet before undoing. Someone behind you throws up, quietly. A captain walks past, armor half-laced. He looks tired in the way only someone with more to lose can look tired. His eyes don't scan, they drift. He knows. The fire crackles. The wood is damp. The smoke makes your eyes sting. But you don't move. You let it sting. Let it burn. Let it remind you that you are still here for now. The sky above is flat again, a sheet of unmoving gray, stretching over your thoughts like a lid. You want stars, a sign, anything, but the world has turned away. You close your eyes, and for a second, you imagine tomorrow never comes, that you will stay here, in this miserable camp, eating awful soup and stealing minutes of sleep on rocks, forever. And somehow, that seems better, because what comes after this fire might not include you, and no one wants to imagine a story they might not survive long enough to hear the ending of. You sit with the blade across your lap. It doesn't gleam, doesn't sing. It isn't the kind of sword ballads remember. No one carved a name into it. No king ever touched it. It has never saved a life or ended one in glory. It is a tool, like a shovel, or a hook, or a bone needle used to close wounds that never heal quite right. But now, it is yours. The whetstone sits in your palm, smooth in a way your thoughts no longer are. You drag the blade against it slowly. The motion is muscle-born. You don't think. You only repeat. Stone, steel, stone, steel. The sound it makes is soft, not a screech, not a spark, just the dry whisper of one edge begging for a reason to matter. Around you, others sharpen too. Some sit in silence. Others hum. One mutters a prayer. Another drinks. Not to forget, but to remember more bravely. No one talks about tomorrow now. That was hours ago. The news has settled like ash. What remains is preparation and the quiet lie that it means anything. Your sword is dull at the tip. You run your thumb carefully along the edge. It does not cut. Not yet. You press harder. Still nothing. Strange. You want it to hurt. Just a little. Just enough to know it could. You lift the whetstone again and begin again. Stone, steel, stone, steel. The rhythm is hypnotic. The blade drags away part of your reflection each time. There was a time when you dreamed of having one, a real blade. You were younger, then stupid in the way only hope can make you. You thought of heroes, knights, banners, trumpets. You imagined standing tall in armor, sword raised against darkness, your name chanted like a song that made people stand straighter. Now you think about whether it will stick, whether the handle will slip in blood, whether you'll forget which way to swing. You watch a man beside you fumble with the hilt of his own. His hands tremble, not from fear, but from cold or something colder than cold. You wonder if he'll survive long enough to swing it once. You wonder the same about yourself. The fire has burned low behind you. You don't turn to feed it. What for? The night is still. The sky remains that cursed, ashen gray. Even the insects have stopped. It is too quiet for life. You try to picture the enemy. What do they look like? Are they like you, tired, dirty, nameless, wondering which way the blade will fall? Or are they monsters shaped like men, but built from fire and command? You don't know. You've never met them. Never been shown a face, only a direction. They're that way. They told you. March until you see them, then swing. So now, you sharpen. Not for survival, not for victory. For momentum, because that is what. This is the slow build of motion towards something that will happen whether you want it to or not. You pause, touch the edge again. Still dull, still not enough. You drag the stone again. Stone, steel, it is your only prayer. And if you're still listening, breathe slowly now. The fire may have faded, but your breath hasn't. Let it draw gently through you like a breeze that remembers warmer days. The night may be long, but you're not alone in it. You think about not going. You think about hiding behind the tents, slipping out into the trees, waiting for the battle to end and pretending you were lost. Would they notice? Would they care? Or would someone else be told to pick up your sword and carry it like it had never belonged to anyone before? You drag the stone again, and the sound reminds you of your father shaving wood on winter mornings. He used to make handles for tools, strong ones. You helped sometimes, badly, but he never complained. You wonder if he'd understand this, if he'd tell you how to hold the hilt differently, or if he'd just look at you and nod, and then leave you alone because words weren't needed. You blink. The blade looks slightly sharper now. Not enough to kill, but enough to try. You rest it across your knees, heavy, not just from iron, but from every version of yourself you've shed to hold it. Tomorrow, you might swing it. Tomorrow, you might drop it. Tomorrow, you might not lift anything again. But tonight, you sharpen, because doing something, anything, feels closer to control than surrender. And that, here in this gray pause, before a morning soaked in screams, is the only thing left you still own. You notice it after the second roll call, not during, not when the names are shouted like rocks tossed into fog, hoping to bounce off something. No, only later, when the night folds in tighter, and the air grows too still to ignore. Someone is gone. Not missing, not dead, just no longer here. There's an empty space in the tent, a bedroll still flattened, a pair of boots still near the fire, but no breath, no presence, no weight in the world to suggest the person it all once belonged to ever existed. And yet you remember. They weren't your friend, not in the way stories pretend soldiers always become, but they were familiar. The kind of familiar that comes from sharing silence, from swapping dry bread without eye contact, from coughing into the same night air for long enough that your lungs learned each other's rhythm. You don't say anything. No one does. This is not the kind of camp where absences are acknowledged. There's no time for that. The hours are too tightly rationed, like water or pity. But still, you feel it. In the way the fire seems smaller, in the way the tent breathes just a little more air, in the way the silence becomes heavier, like it's holding a secret none of you are brave enough to name. You don't know when they left or how, but you start replaying the day in your mind, looking for gaps. Were they quiet at breakfast? Did they march a little further back than usual? Was there a glance, a pause, a moment where their eyes said, "I've decided"? You can't be sure, but now that they're gone, everything they didn't say feels louder. Someone nearby coughs. Another stirs in their bedroll. Life continues, but now with an echo, a shape left behind, like a hand pulled from water too slowly. You think about following, just walking into the trees, away from the firelight, into the gray. Would it be hard? Would they notice? Would they even care? If you made it far enough, would you become the kind of memory that grows softer with time? A name spoken in confusion, a face remembered only when the boots are packed up, when the sword needs reassignment, when the soup ration feels slightly more generous than yesterday. You reach for your blanket. It doesn't help. Warmth, tonight, feels irrelevant. Instead, your thoughts spiral, not in panic, but in drifting wonder. Where did they go? Not the direction, but the purpose. Did they leave to find something, or just to stop being part of everything that's coming? You remember a time long ago now when you thought escape was cowardice. Now you see it for what it is, clarity. A decision made in silence. A boundary drawn in mud and walked across while no one was watching. You envy them, just a little, not because they're safe, not because they're free, but because they chose. And here, so much of your life isn't chosen. It's followed, assigned, endured. Someone stirs again. You hear the shuffle of movement. A cup lifted. A breath held. They haven't noticed, or if they have, they're pretending like you. That's the rule. After all, pretend long enough and maybe absence fills in like shadow. It's all right to drift now. The camp may forget, but your breath doesn't. Let it fall gently, like snow that no one names. If your eyes are heavy, let them close. The story will hold itself. You imagine the one who left wherever they are now. Are they walking still or sitting beneath a tree, watching the stars that never appear here? Are they crying, laughing, or just breathing again? Maybe they're already caught, hauled back, punished, forgotten. Or maybe, just maybe, they found something beyond this endless mud and steel and dread. A field, a river, a quiet. You wrap the blanket tighter, not for comfort, for anchor. Because even though you're still here, part of you now leans into the shape they left behind. And part of you whispers not aloud, but deep in your chest that maybe next time, it will be you. And maybe no one will say a word then either. Because in this place, people leave, quietly, like smoke. There is no bed, only the ground. And the ground does not forgive. It does not shift kindly to meet your spine. It does not soften at your size. It holds you like a mother who never wanted children firm, cold, and distant. You lie down anyway, because your body has stopped asking questions. It no longer bargains for comfort. It no longer argues with pain. It accepts the stones beneath your ribs, the sticks that poke at your neck, the wet cloth that was once your blanket. There is no ritual to it, no prayer, no good night. Just surrender. You curl inward, as if folding could make you smaller, less noticeable, harder to summon when the morning trumpet wails again. You pull the thin blanket around you. It smells of wood smoke, sweat, and someone else's regret. You don't remember when it became yours. Maybe it never did. Above you, the sky hangs low. It isn't night black. It's just unlit, like a fire that never caught. A ceiling of heavy gray, unmoved by stars or dreams. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to stop seeing, because here, in this army camp, even sight becomes weight. Each face you remember is one more name you'll forget when the roll call thins. Each tree you glimpse beyond the tents is another reminder of somewhere you're not allowed to walk. The rocks beneath your shoulder blade dig in. One feels like a coin. For a moment, you imagine burying it, not to hide it, but to leave something behind, anything that says I was here. I tried to rest. You think of beds you've known, a straw mattress in your childhood home, the one that creaked when you rolled but smelled like summer. A pile of quilts beside a hearth one winter, shared with cousins, laughter leaking through the cracks. Even the forest floor on a hunting trip, when a cousin dared you to sleep without flinching, and you did. This is none of those. This is the shape of absence made physical. This is the kind of rest that doesn't restore. It merely pauses the unraveling. You breathe slowly. The air is thin with waiting. Around you, others shift, mumble. Some snore. One cries softly. They think no one hears. But you do. You don't judge. Tears are just the body reminding itself it still remembers something worth mourning. You consider crying too, not because you feel sad, but because the effort might warm your face. Instead, you press your hand to your chest. The heartbeat is faint but steady. You are still here, not whole, not safe, but still. There's no comfort in that, only confirmation. You try to dream, but dreams require a kind of softness that no longer lives in your bones. So instead, you imagine. Imagine a day when the war ends, and someone gives you a bed, a real one, with sheets, with bread beside it, with someone saying your name before you sleep, and meaning it. You tell yourself that such a day is possible, even if it's not, even if it never was, even if the person who left earlier tonight will find it first. The rock shifts under your hip. Your spine adjusts like a tree trying not to snap in wind. You stop moving, not because you're comfortable, but because comfort no longer matters. Only stillness does. You tell yourself that stillness is peace. You lie again, and again, and again, until you forget you ever stood at all, like dreams too tired to finish. And the only trace left behind is the pause between two names that once sat closer together. You don't remember falling asleep. You only remember that you were thinking about warmth, not fire, not blankets, but something more abstract. A memory of sunlight, the kind that touched your neck once, in a life far from here, without asking anything in return. Then, the whistle. It doesn't scream, it slices. Thin, cold, mechanical. Like a knife that forgot it wasn't a bell, it cuts the camp open. You wake halfway, tangled in a knot of limbs and fabric and memory. You don't rise. Not yet. You stay there a moment longer, blinking into the half-light, unsure if the whistle came from outside or from inside your own skull. The sky above is still dark. Not night, not morning, just the gray limbo between. Your body protests, not with pain you've grown accustomed to, but with refusal. Your knees stay curled. Your arms do not search for boots. Your mouth remains shut, dry with sleep. But the camp moves, and because the camp moves, so must you. You sit up slowly, bones click. A tooth throbs. Your hands are so stiff you almost expect them to break when you clench them into fists. You open the flap of the tent. The air outside is indifferent. It has no greeting, no scent, just the damp breath of earth waiting for something to bleed into it. Other men are already moving, silhouettes shifting like ghosts, who still obey commands. No one talks. No one jokes. No one complains. They just begin again as if yesterday never ended, only paused. You try to stand. Your legs remember, barely. They remember the drills, the marches, the sprints toward nowhere, but they do not move with grace. They carry you forward like you're just another thing the morning forgot to bury. You stumble toward the fire pit. The embers are not dead, but they aren't alive either. They're in between like everything here. A soldier tosses a twig in. It sparks. You watch the light rise, fail, and fall. Someone hands you something to chew. Bread, maybe, or wax disguised as food. You don't thank them. They don't expect it. In this place, gratitude is extinct. The whistle blows again. Shorter this time, urgent. You flinch. not because of the sound, but because of what it means. Form up, the line, the weight, the next set of hours you will give away for free. You tighten your belt, not because it needs tightening, but because it's one of the few rituals left that tells your body, we are not undone yet. You fall in, shoulder to shoulder, with strangers who have become closer than brothers, and yet still unknown. You do not know their dreams. You do not know their names, but you know how they smell when it rains, how they fall asleep when ordered not to, how their knees tremble when the captain walks past. You march. The mud sticks again. The morning fog does not lift. Time folds. And you realize you are not beginning a new day. You are finishing the last one, because here, days are not things that pass. They are things you survive, one after another. And the whistle, it doesn't wake you. It simply reminds you that you never slept deeply enough to be gone. The blade doesn't shine. It isn't the kind of sword sung about in tales, no holy steel, no heirloom rune, just a length of iron so dull you could mistake it for a plank. But it's yours, at least for now. You kneel beside the grindstone. Someone passed it to you, with a grunt and a nod, the only language left here at the edge of exhaustion. You're not told what to do. You're expected to know, or guess, or copy the nearest man's motions and hope that's enough. You drag the blade forward, a slow hiss, like a whisper caught in its own throat. You do it again, and again. The edge resists. It was never sharp to begin with, just brutal, but the motion soothes you. There's something in it. The rhythm, the weight, the way your arms remember how to move without thinking. You wonder, briefly, what it would feel like to swing it, not in battle, but in air, alone, like slicing open a space between thoughts. But you won't. You won't swing this blade. You won't charge. You won't kill. You won't be a name they whisper after dusk. You won't be anything except what you are now, a figure hunched over iron, breathing hard, thinking softly. Someone walks past, a captain, maybe, or a messenger. You don't look up, not because you don't care, but because care requires energy, and you've spent yours. They say there will be battle tomorrow. You've heard that before. It always sounds like a sentence, never a prophecy. No one really knows. No one really prepares. You just wait. You wait with your hands and your back and your mouth shut. You've made it this far, and still the fire didn't go out. The sky didn't fall. You are here, and the story hasn't ended yet. Let yourself exhale. Let the quiet in. You look down at the blade. Your reflection doesn't greet you. There is no gleam. Just the metal, as tired as you. You reach for a rag, wipe the edge, touch it with your thumb. Still blunt, still real. You wonder if it will outlive you, if someone else will pick it up tomorrow, not knowing it was yours tonight, not knowing how many thoughts it carried that no hand will ever hold. You set it aside. The wind picks up, but there's no cold in it, just motion, just the world turning without asking you to follow. Around the camp, voices begin to settle. One man hums something again, maybe the same tune from earlier. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. You don't need to recognize it to understand it. It's the sound of trying. You lie down one more time, not because you believe in sleep, but because sleep believes in you, or at least forgives you enough to visit even when you no longer ask. The ground greets your body like it's met you before. And maybe it has. The same rocks, the same crooked spine, the same uncertain dawn waiting just beyond the tent. You close your eyes, and you think, not of battle, not of blood, not of banners or kings, but of bread that breaks before it bends, of fire that refuses to catch, of a song that stopped too soon. And you know, you will not be remembered, not by name, not by deed, not by anything more than the shape your boots left in the mud. But you remember And for now, that is enough. You've walked far enough tonight. Let the floorboards hold the rest. And if you're still awake, was it a little easier this time? This is the silent history. Tonight's story has ended. Sleep well, and if the dreams come, let them be kind.